I just wanted to showcase a little AnalogX goodness. I wanted to just show you guys how I like to use these incredible things in my projects. I just went in the booth, grabbed some instruments, and recorded what you're about to hear. It starts off with this one little instrument that's a kind of acoustic bass instrument, and then we have the low string and the high string which play together. And then we have an acoustic saz and a dulcimer that play together. And then this is all on top of 4 different kinds of frame drums with some shakers and then an electric bass. So quite simple. So let's give it a listen. So, not bad. Let's start from the top. So over here on the stereo out, we can see what I've got. You can see that these first 2 instances, one is on and one is off of Genesis. So what's happening here is that for playback, I am using Series 5 and Gold so that I use less CPU, but for when I do a bounce down, I have an identical one that's using Ethereum, Series X, and if there was something that was Diamond, this would be here too. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm perfectly fine with the lower ones that are more CPU friendly. They sound just fine. But hey, if it only takes a minute to set it up so that I just turn one on and turn the other one off and then hit bounce and then it goes to an offline bounce, why not? We can hear what this processing is doing. So how about we push play and then I'll just turn the whole thing off and the whole thing on. So this is basically as soon as I have some drums, some bass, and some other parts layered up where I have like a full frequency spectrum, this is what I set up, and then I mix everything through this. So I absolutely love a lot of what's going on here. I keep testing everything, I shoot out everything, and I just find I love the 33609. Like, this is just my favorite stereo bus compressor. My second favorite is the one that says 20 decibel gain reduction for the SSL-G, but there's just something super special about this 33609, so I just keep using it. This is the SSL 4K button. So this is actually the SSL 4K button on my SSL interface. So I really liked that 4K button, but I was really tired of having to like record through it for everything or just commit to it. And so as soon as I heard what AnalogX was doing, I sent it to them and then they made a profile out of it and I love it. For me, this 4K button, this is really like SSL's version of Rupert Neve Design's Silk Red. It just does this fantastic thing to the high end. Now, of course, as soon as I use it, some things are too hyped in the high end, but that's really simple. I just go into my channel here, and then I just mess with the EQ. So when I correct for the 4K button, I find I just have to take the element that's causing a problem. I put it at 2000, and then I just drop it somewhere between 1 and 6. So sometimes it needs nothing, sometimes it needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, no big deal. It just gives me this like mix pop and this mix sheen that I really, really like. So I love to just mix through it, and it's so much easier to have it here as a profile rather than having it in the actual form and having to print through it, especially where it is in my particular chain and where it is that I prefer it. The next one is they have a Sweet Fusion profile, and wow, I love this thing. If the SSL 4K button is SSL's version of the Rupert Neve Designs Silk Red, then this Sweet Fusion, which is a kind of saturation profile, this is like SSL's version of Rupert Neve Designs Silk Blue. So this one does something magic to the low end. It's subtle, but wow, do I love it. There's another thing that AnalogX has released that I basically cannot live without now, and that is this infrabus mastering processor. Now, I don't remember what's in here. I remember that there's a treble compressor. I remember that there's a master bus processor, but basically it's a whole chain. They captured an entire chain of processing. If I mix through this, I feel like I have a kind of mastered sound. I'll just turn some things on and off and you can hear them. Yeah. So, I mean, these do amazing things. Like, this is what I love about AnalogX. I hear things with AnalogX that I don't ever hear with other plugins. And you'll notice on these, I am not using any parallel processing. Like, everything's just done in full, and I'm just adjusting the amount, which adjusts the amount of compression or the amount of effect. But in the case of the 4K button and the Sweet Fusion, I just leave them because it's like I'm printing through the device itself. You know, I love that. So now one thing that I really, really love is this one. And so this is the, I think this is a Burl B2. And so this is with clipping, actually, 1.5 clipping. And I don't know, there's something about this. If you put it at the very, very end, it's like you're recording an analog mix back into the DAW through these Burl converters. And they just sound awesome. So here, I'll turn this on and off a couple of times. It's just, this thing is just a great mix finisher. Yeah, I don't know. I love that sound. As soon as I get a bass, some drums, and some string parts and some mid things, I set this whole thing up and then I mix the entire track through it. So if you look here at the naming, I keep track of what I do for stuff. So if I'm going to use an AnalogX preamp, emulation. The reason that I use it is because I'm recording through an audio interface. So I recorded this whole song through the Apogee Element 88. It sounds nice, but you know, it could use some character and things. So being able to bounce down stuff wherever I can is really, really nice. What I do is I actually bounce everything out as a 32-bit file for storage. So I always have the original recording with no processing, and then I have the exact same thing but with the preamp profile applied, and then I have it one more time with the preamp and the console line amp that I'm using. So it's like I've run it through, in this case, an SSLG console, and I'm able to bounce that down. And because I bounce that down, I'm just retaining and saving a lot of CPU. Yeah, just know that that's what I do, that's how I have it. And because I balance everything with a VU meter, so I make sure that before the processing, everything's peaking at exactly 0, and then after the processing, it's also peaking at exactly 0, and this lets me just A/B really quickly to know whether I like the processing that I've done. Now, I do this with everything, not just AnalogX stuff. So after I do an EQ curve, I will do the same thing. And sometimes an EQ curve that I thought was amazing turns out, oh, I actually ruined everything. There's automated solutions and other plugins, and I don't know, they don't work for me. This does. I enjoy it. What I like to do here is I love to run everything in the mix through the 5060 summing profile. So I like to use channel 1 and channel 2. And if the mix gets really big, then I will run everything through the additional 2 channels. So I'll just turn these 2 on and off. You can see that it's the 5060 summing. Let's just turn that on and off, and you can hear what's going down with it. Yeah, so I mean, it's just summing, but it just does this sexy thing that I really, really like. So this brings us to the next thing, and they haven't updated this profile yet, but I still use it even though it's old. And that is this manly reverb profile. I don't know. So what I do is I take every reverb that's coming through the project, which is these at the moment, and I bus them all to a single bus, and then I apply this processing. So here, I'll play this and turn it on and off, and you can hear it. Yeah, so for me, that does a lot. I remember when I first started producing, I was always like, why do my reverbs not sound like the reverbs on all these records that I really, really liked? And then one day I realized, oh, because when you were doing reverbs on these old boards, when you're mixing on a console, it goes out of the console, it goes into a device. It doesn't matter whether that's a digital device, a plate, or a spring or something. It would come back into the console, and it would go through a line amp, and it would go through all these things that just separate it a little bit. Then, you know, if you do this awesome stuff where you take your reverbs and you run it through some kind of EQ or something, in this case, Manly, wow, it just makes them jump out. It separates them a little bit from the source, which makes them sound sexy. So this thing has been living here ever since it first came out. If they ever update it, I will be a very happy person. Let's move on to the bus processing, because the way that I like to work with this stuff is it's a top-down approach. So I set up all the stereo out stuff first, then I set up my summing and then my reverbs, and then I move down to the buses. So in this project, we have a drum bus, we have a bass bus, and we have an acoustic strings bus. I'll solo the drums bus. Yeah, so this is just a bunch of different frame drums. One of them is a bendir, which has that string on it. So no, it's not distorting. Yes, it's supposed to be like that. It's a kind of ethnic drum. I love it. What I've done is I use the SSL Sigma. All right, so I'm pretending that I'm summing a bus into a sigma, and then that sigma is summing into a Rupert Neve Designs 5060 summing piece. So I'm just pretending that I'm just ingloriously rich. And then I have my bus processor, which in this case, I really liked the Pi. Each one of them, that's what they have. They have the SSL Sigma processing, and then they have a bus compressor. So if we look here, this one is using the STA level. And then over here on the acoustic strings, we have a Manley Verimut limiter. So I always shoot out pretty much all of my compressors until I find one that I think fits. So let's turn this on and off. So we're going to hear what happens when we turn off the compressor and the SSL summing. Yeah, so for me, this just makes everything jump out. It separates it a little bit. It gives everything a flavor, a space. I absolutely love this stuff. Like especially the summing, the SSL Sigma summing, super, super, super special for me. You know, with all that applied, my channels become so simple. So yeah, so my channels all just basically have an EQ, and then if I need to do some processing afterwards, I will get it set to 0 VU. So in this case, these two did. And then I will apply my channel compression. So how do you choose a channel compressor? That's up to you. You do what you like. How do I do it? Well, it's very simple. I'm pretending that I am using an SSL console. In my fantasy world here, I'm going through SSL lines, and then those are going into channel processing. So for this, I'm using the SSLG channel comp. All right, and then those go to the buses. The buses go into Sigma summing, which is basically like having just the summing portion of an SSL console, which gives me the ability to then sum all that into a Rupert Neve Designs 5060 summing piece as if I was some ultra rich person that no one would probably want to talk to if they saw my setup. So anyways, because I'm doing top-down mixing, which I find just is so intuitive here, the last thing that I do is actually the channel compression. Whereas before I was always fucking up my mixes by doing the channel compression first. And so the thing is, I find that if you put channel compression on everything, you have channel compression on nothing. You basically have just equalized the entire mix again. So what I do now is I listen to the mix, and whatever is getting just lost or needs to pop out, I will give it a channel compressor just to pop it out, not to give it character or anything, but just to pop it out. This one here, the high string, we can play it. That was getting lost in the mix. And then so was the bass. I'll play the bass all by itself. Okay, listen for these two, this high string and the bass. I will just turn their channel compression on and off, and you can hear what the AnalogX stuff does. I never had an algorithmic based compressor that could do this. It was so natural once I got the AnalogX stuff. Absolutely love it. I mean, of course, an algorithmic plugin, it is real compression. So it is really compressing the dynamic range, which makes something sound louder, but not the way that AnalogX stuff does. You'll hopefully you'll hear. Yeah, so I don't know. I love it. It just pops those elements out, brings them to a place where I can hear them. I mean, without the channel compression, they're there. I hear it, but they don't have that prominent forward showcasing that that I want. So how about this? How about we have some fun and let's turn all of the AnalogX processing off and then let's turn it back on just to see what it does. And we will go top down. Yeah, that's dull as hell, right? I mean, this could be a lot better. So now let's do the reverse. We'll wait for the bass. I love what the AnalogX stuff is doing. Of course, there's so much more that I could also be doing in a mix that I'm set up and ready for but haven't done. So for example, with the drums, I can have a parallel compression bus set up. You know, I could throw in an 1176 or, I mean, whatever I wanted, I could throw it on as a parallel compressor. If I wanted, I could also go over here and set up a rear bus. You know, there's the MC76 or other FET compressors that you can do the rear bus trick with. Of course, after you get enough of them, you can get to the point where you're like, oh, I don't know what to use. I don't know what to do. The way that I like to approach that is I'm just constantly A-Bing stuff. So one day I'll be like, okay, I want to hear what everything sounds like on the drums for preamps. And then I will go in and I will shoot out the entire library of preamps on a particular drum. And then I'll make sure that everything's level matched with the VU. And then I just throw them in a project and I just A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, and I rank them. And I go, okay, so this is the one I like now. And then after you do that with enough stuff, your brain just starts remembering which one is what one is what. And you just start being able to be like, okay, I want this here. I want this here. I want this here. And there's going to be some stuff where you just find like that's there all the time. So for me, I still shoot it out just to double check every now and then. But this entire chain, this just lives here. Just absolutely lives here. This is what I really love about AnalogX is it sounds like the thing. It just sounds like the thing. It's not reminiscent of the thing. It sounds like the thing. And of course, analog still has that perfectly full analogness, even though I have profiles made for my hardware preamps. If I record with my hardware preamp, I'm just going to use the hardware preamp because, it's just got that edge. And I'm sure analog always will have that edge, but at least the gap has been closed significantly. Honestly, before AnalogX, I was never, ever, ever happy with any of my mixes. I was just always making digital mixes, and I always believed that I could make digital mixes, but I was just never happy with them. They were just never the way I wanted them to sound. But ever since AnalogX, especially since Series 5 and everything newer, my mixes sound the way I want them to sound. It's the first time I've gotten the sound I want. And I have been chasing the analog dragon for years now. From the time that I understood, okay, I really need to learn how to mix, and then started really studying that until now. Like nothing plugin wise ever quite did it for me. And, I'm not going to name names of other companies or plugins or brands or technologies and attempts and other things that have been tried, because I'm not here to shit on anyone. What I want to do is I just want to point out that with Analog X, there is a bright and shining star, and it sounds incredible. And it's a new technology, it's new plugins, it's new stuff, it's some very, very passionate but very few people working to make this into a reality. So there's still some huge CPU, there's still some crash issues every now and then, or, but I don't care, because for me, the sound is everything. The fact that I'm getting the sound that I want is just so incredible to me. They're bringing out new profiles all the time of amazing gear. And for the first time, I feel like I can go and get to know gear. I would download plugins of my favorite, supposedly my favorite analog stuff, and I would try them out. And there would be some differences, and it'd be like, okay. But with Analog X, from one profile to another, two compressors sound completely different. Two summing units sound completely different. Two preamps sound completely different. Like, I'd always heard that Neve preamps give you a smear, and that API gave you the same quality but without the smear. And I had no idea what that meant until I started using AnalogX preamps. And now I can hear clear as day between the two, like, oh yeah, Neve stuff has this transient smear to it, whereas the API doesn't. It has this punch and this body. And what happens is I feel like I finally have colors. I feel like a painter that's been painting with just black and white and making different shades of gray. And now I have colors. I have many, many, many different colors. I have famous colors that my brain recognizes. Usually what happens is when I get something that I really like and I pop it on something and I A/B it for the very first time, my brain is lighting up going, oh my God, I recognize this sound. I recognize this sound. Like the Telefunken preamp, like my brain recognizes this, it is a very, very distinct sound. The SSL, oh boy, do I really recognize this SSL character. The API, wow, I recognize the API character. The key is always knowing where and how to use these things. So that's the whole point of this little walkthrough, is I just want to show how I use them. So just some basics. The philosophy for me is use it where it would be used for real. My basic rules for this are, if I record through an audio interface, then I use some kind of AnalogX preamp profile. Then I dream of being able to mix through an SSL console. So every single channel gets an SSL line. And you can see this on every single one, that there's the SSL line. If I record through a hardware preamp, then I don't apply a preamp profile, and instead I just add the SSL line. And of course, I'm keeping everything original, not just bouncing it down and like doing that. And then I do my bus processing. And my bus processing is based in the analog reality. Now, one thing that I want you to notice is the complete and total lack of pretty much every other plugin that I've ever owned. All right. Aside from AnalogX, some basic reverbs, on my stereo out, I have Gullfoss and I have an EQ. And then everything else is just a standard digital EQ. I'm not using, look at this huge plugin. I've got Acoustica stuff and Air Windows stuff, and I have Analog Obsession and Apogee and all these things. Some of them are trials. I bought a lot of these. I bought all these SSL plugins. You know what my previous plugin of choice was the Metric Halo channel strip. I basically don't use this now unless I'm using it as a gate for a microphone. Like, that's an expensive gate. So, I mean, I'm just finding I don't need almost any of this stuff because what I have just sounds the way it's supposed to sound. I was dreaming of getting that kind of sound for so many years, and suddenly I have it. I know there's a lot of people on the internet, and in general, they'll say something, which is mostly true, where they say it's not about the gear, it's about the ear, and things like this. But the true fact is that some tools are superior to others. And the reason that there has been 30 years, basically, of a barrage of analog emulation algorithmic plugins, it's like it never ends. You've got, like, just think about SSLs. You've got your waves, you've got your official SSL, you've got your Analog Obsession versions, and you've got your Plugin Alliance version. It's like it's never ending. Never ending. Why is it never ending? Well, because none of them got the sound. They don't sound like the hardware. Anyone that went from one to the other, you just know that you didn't get it. This, for me, represents the first time that we are getting it. And it's so nice. And I would imagine that as we go forward, this is only going to get better and better. And the computers are getting better and better. It is a beautiful, beautiful time to be alive. Like 30 years for chasing the holy grail of analog in the box seems to finally be happening. And if nothing else, at least I'm happy with the mixes I'm getting for the first time. Love you guys. Keep making music. I hope and I wish and I pray for every one of you that you not only make the music that you love, but you get a sound that you love.